I'm now to Anna Bligh. She is the CEO of the Australian Banking Association. Anna Bligh, thank you for your time. You met with the Treasurer yesterday. What did he ask of you?
Good morning, Laura. Yes, there was a meeting yesterday of the Australian Banking Association Council that comprises the 15 CEOs of Australia's largest banks. As you would expect, the Treasurer was very keen to be reassured that Australian banks are well prepared to face into the challenge that we believe is coming right across the Australian economy. We are in very good shape, probably the best shape Australian banks have ever been in, and largely as a result of the work over the last 10 years to make Australian banks unquestionably strong. They are well capitalised, they've got very strong balance sheets, and they are in an outstanding position to help their customers, their small business customers, the household and individual customers who may well be facing into financial difficulties on an unprecedented scale.
Anna, how long can the banks sustain that, though? You say that the banking sector is strong, and that's true, but we've been reporting this morning that the bull runs over in the United States, the bull runs over in Australia here as well. So how long can the banking sector sustain that strength?
Well, of course, the answer to that depends very much on what the scale of the demand is, and we'll have to monitor that very carefully over the coming weeks and potentially months. But Australian banks are holding very strong capital buffers, and that's as a result of 10 years of work between banks, governments and regulators. What banks are able to do in these circumstances is provide very practical help. Small businesses that are facing a loss or even a complete absence of revenue because of some of the measures that will be needed to manage this outbreak can expect from their banks that they can do very practical things like restructure their loans, defer payments for a period of time, waive fees, allow people to access term deposits. So there will be different responses and different needs for individual customers, but on a case-by-case basis. Every bank has hardship teams who are well practiced in these assessments. Right now they're helping several thousand victims of the bushfires, and they stand ready as coronavirus plays across the economy to do exactly the same and to lift to this challenge, and they're ready to do so.
For the banking sector in particular, is this a very different situation to what we saw 11, 12 years ago during the GFC when you required a government guarantee?
Laura, this is a completely different sort of crisis. This is not a crisis occurring at a financial level within the banking and finance system. This is very much a health crisis that is having economic impacts in other parts of the economy. So what we're seeing here is the need for banks to play a very important role. They are well equipped to do so, and yesterday banks were able to reassure the Treasurer that they are, as I said, in the best shape ever to face into something like this. I think it's hard for governments and for banks and the community at this stage to predict what the scale of that might be and what it might look like next week or the week after. But the very substantial, well-capitalised financial system, including Australia's banks, are ready for that challenge.
Well, Anna, you were Premier during the last GFC, so you went through that. You've seen the government's response now. What are your concerns? Will our economy fall into recession? Is that the expectation?
Well, like others, I look forward to seeing all the details of the government's package, but we're certainly seeing a package of a very substantial size, and I think that tells you that the government is preparing potentially for the economic impacts of this health issue to have a potentially very large impact on businesses large and small. It is, as I've said, and I was there, I do remember it, but this is of a very different nature. This is not a crisis within our financial system. It is across the rest of the economy, and the financial system is well equipped to face into this and support those parts of the economy that are feeling the impacts. I think this, as I said, the size of the government's proposed package, as it's been reported this morning, indicates how seriously they're taking it and what they're potentially preparing for. But governments can't deal with these things on their own. It will require corporate Australia to shoulder some of the burden, and that's precisely the discussion that banks had yesterday. And they are not only preparing, firstly, to stand by and to help their customers, but they're also making business continuity plans themselves to ensure that their own staff are safe and healthy, to ensure that Should there be substantial need for people to work from home, that their systems are ready to cope with that, so that they can be there when their customers need them.
Well, how much of that burden are you really willing to shoulder? Will we see, well, we might very well see customers, small businesses fall behind in credit repayments or mortgages. Would the government, would the banks, just to be very clear, would the banks be willing to wipe out such debt?
Laura, these things are determined on a case-by-case basis, but that is certainly something that is open to banks, and they have done that in many cases of hardship being experienced by individuals and by small businesses. It's not possible in every case, and nor is it necessary in every case. So it is very much a case-by-case assessment. As I said, they have very experienced teams who are working right now with bushfire affected businesses. Banks, on the positive side, reported to the reported to the Treasurer yesterday that at this stage they are seeing very, very few customers seeking assistance. They've got less than a dozen small businesses talking to them about their cash flows and potential problems. But they're acutely aware that this time next week that could be a very, very different picture. And the message they want to send very clearly to the community is not only are they ready to help, but the earlier that you start having discussions with your bank, the more likely it is that they will be able to assist. Don't wait till things get into a terrible situation. If you are looking forward and predicting that you might have trouble, now is the time to talk to your bank so that they can equip you, potentially with additional working capital, for example, might be a bigger need for one business than looking at the payment side. So, this is going to be a moment when the country's going to have to pull together, and banks are going to have to be part of that effort, and they stand ready to do just that.
ABA CEO Anna Bligh, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.